Two souls entwined, an eternal couple, by deity enshrined, the Estolian Way.
Indelible link, one to the other, connected forever, in life and in death.
The hardest part of my role in this iteration of the grand design has been to observe without interference. Krynos often comforted me as I watched the intricate swirling eddies of one anchor point of influence weave into the others. Despite our many past failures, Elora's emphatic insistence on moving forward with this iteration has proven to be the right choice. How could any of us have grasped the brilliance with which she perceived the endless possibilities? One by one, her predictions have come true, and even those elevated to the rank of major deity are awed by how this iteration differs from all that came before. Alanis, Elora, and Zenta have proven most adept at navigating the constraints of the grand design. Calaria, musings on eternity.
Cathaya sat beside the mossy rock, knees drawn up to her chest, eyes fixed on the bubbling green pond. She willed herself not to think. Picking up pebbles from the thick moss, she tossed them one by one into the water, each one sinking without a sound, a stark contrast to the usual rippling response of a normal pond. Then she threw a stick, and it landed with a splash, sending rippling waves across the surface before vanishing without a trace. Like her dreams, the future she'd never know. Leaning her forehead against her knees, she shut out the pond and the uncertain horizon ahead, wishing she could sink into the thick green depths like the stick. How had it come to this? Apollyon had invited her to ride in the sacred grove, eager to show her the hidden pond, a place not found on any map. She relished his company, her heart quickening at the mere thought of him. But that magic was now tarnished. Tears streamed down her cheeks, burning like fire. Apollyon was so handsome, so commanding, the future king, the one all of Estolia depended on for safety and happiness. His gaze had once sparkled with approval as he held her close, his body pressed against hers, the warmth intoxicating like the frothy top of a bucket of fresh milk. Yet in an instant it all unraveled. When he first pulled her to him, she had revelled in his favour, lost in the sensation of him. But then his hand slipped between her thighs, shattering the spell his kisses had cast. Just as she meant to protest, to remind him of boundaries, he kissed her fiercely, ignoring her resistance, the push of her hands against his shoulders. The weight of his body over hers was heavier than she could bear, and the pain felt akin to a sword piercing her heart. She stopped fighting as he grunted above her, the appeal of his face vanishing, replaced by something petulant and ugly. Hatred surged within her, coalescing into a dark resolve as he took from her that which she would never yield willingly. She despised his theft, her own inaction, and the deity who let it happen. When he finally rolled away, lying on the moss beside her, fury twisted in her heart, an urge to choke the life from him. Yet, beneath the storm of rage, a chilling detachment settled over her, as if her emotions had transformed into the stuff of legends, separate from her own broken heart and soul. He rolled his head to the side and looked at her with a grin that she once liked, that excited her imagination, and he said breathlessly,
"That was wonderful, Cathaya."
He remained unrepentant in the face of her unrelenting recriminations. Cathaya took a grim satisfaction in the exhaustive list of words she crafted to describe him, his actions, and her own tumultuous feelings.
"Cathaya,"
he whined during one of her pauses.
"Paratarsus admitted it's all just superstition. There's no deity, no real keeping of the soul."
The scornful way he talked made Cathaya fear for Estolia's future. How could the heir apparent so completely disregard the promise of Zacharias, refute the very way of life that defined Estolia? She believed in all the promises of deity that kept their society safe. As she hugged her knees and gazed at the slowly bubbling green surface of the pond, she replayed in her mind, yet again, the conversation they'd had before she told him to leave her alone. She knew that there would come a day when he'd pay for his crime against her. Time seemed to stand still around her, and she had a vision of him clutching his throat as a crimson tide flowed between his fingers, pouring from a fatal wound. In her vision, he pulled an unknown woman into his arms before they both collapsed, blood gushing from slit throats. With a conviction more profound than any she'd ever felt in her life until now, Cathaya knew Apollyon would never wear the crown of Estolia, never be king. She raised her head from her knees. The pond gnats swarming in the air over the green, bubbling pond had suddenly halted in their flight, hovering still and motionless. Alarmed, she sprang quickly to her feet, scanning her surroundings to determine what had changed. Standing just behind her was an older woman, her hair silver, her face unlined by age.
"Hello, Cathaya,"
she said softly. Cathaya flushed a deep scarlet, mortified. The woman must have seen what transpired in the clearing just moments ago, witnessed what Apollyon had done to her.
"Purity is not about virginity,"
the woman said.
"It is about a purity of soul."
Cathaya shook her head, rejecting the offered solace.
I was as involved as he was to begin with.
She insisted.
"What do you want, Cathaya?"
The woman asked. Her wants and her needs crystallized.
I do not wish to be any man's Kaylee, to be defined by any man.
Her anger towards Apollyon still burned hot within her breast.
"If you wish this, then your destiny will be apart from Estolia.
The woman said, her expression unreadable.
Your personality, your strength within, would have always rejected the symbiosis of a typical Estolian marriage. I would have wanted you to learn this lesson in a gentler way, but Apollyon had a different idea."
You?
Cathaya looked at the woman closer. She didn't know her.
My vision earlier, was it real?
"Yes, Cathaya. If Apollyon does not mend his ways, he will ultimately reject everything that Zacharias stood for, and as a result, he will risk being made to pay for his actions."
The last resort.
She said. She had seen the future. She prayed that Alexandros would have the strength of character to fulfill his destiny. While she rejected much of the Estolian way, she still loved the land of her birth and could not bear to see it destroyed.
Your gift is the ability to see how actions today beget consequences tomorrow. Not the certainty of absolutes, but the potentialities that exist, the reaction for each action. If you wish to make use of your talent and forever be your own person, rather than defined by a union with one man, then your future lies away from Estolia's shores. In Palmyra, as a priestess, a seer, a woman clearly touched and influenced by the will of the 7 gods of Centrath, you will find significant and meaningful happiness. If this future appeals to you, I will be your guide. Know this, Cathaya, you can still be a man's Kaylee if you wish. If you embrace this alternative pathway, it must be an active decision on your part, a choice you make based on what you want for yourself, not a choice based on the actions of Apollyon or a flawed perception of unworthiness.
Cathaya would choose to be responsible for herself. The sun had breasted the hill, brightening the landscape of her future. Her eyes met the woman's. She was conversing with deity.
I am deity. You will continue to be one of my subjects.
Cathaya could suddenly see her own future. Her hand fluttered to her abdomen, and she said with wonder,
I will conceive.
You will bear Apollyon's son.
Deity said to her.
The day will come when your descendant will keep the soul of the king. She will have the future that should have been yours if Apollyon was not plagued by immaturity.
Will I see you again?
The older woman smiled but did not answer.
Ask Helman to give you safe passage to Palmyra. He will leave in 2 days at dawn. I will be with you, Cathaya, every day of your long and eventful life.
Together our leaders, the stray are wrong. With the transition, bring us to Tor's own.